you can go onto our agenda, is with elected officials. And Alexa, you can go on to the next page. So tonight's conversation is with elected officials. We'll be talking to community leaders under 40. We'll be talking to entrepreneurs and job creators as we go through 2022. So please follow our Mobilize page. And Nisi, I don't know if you have a chance to drop our Mobilize link in the chat so that you can start following us there so that you will see whenever we go with other activities. So you can see our quick agenda. We're going to be talking to these awesome elected officials that Alexa will introduce momentarily. And we'll be talking about things like, what are the fresh perspectives they're bringing, social media, transparency. And then we want you to get involved. We'd love to get your questions and comments, in the conversation. And then we'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing at the New Rule Project and how you can get involved. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Alexa Roberts. Alexa is the program director of the New Rule Project. She's been with us only, I guess, not even quite 2 months, but you wouldn't believe it based on all of the amazing things she's already been doing so far. So Alexa, I'll turn it to you.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. That made me blush a little bit. So I'm thrilled to be here with New Rule Project. I think the work that we're doing is very important, and I like what we do here, which is a lot of listening. So as you can see, I am the New Rule Project Program Director, but I also serve as a councilwoman in my own town in Moore County through the village of Whispering Pines. So I decided to run. I am not under 40, I'll just admit that, but I did decide to run a few years back because our young folks did not have a voice there. I do have a young child, so I wanted to improve transparency, communication with our residents, and make sure that the younger families that were moving into my village were getting a voice on the council. So tonight, we do have a group of panelists that are wonderful. And the reason that we decided to start this conversation tonight with elected officials is because New Rule Project, is turning a year old next week. So you can join us for that too next week. So one of the first things that New Rule Project engaged in was having conversations with small focus groups across 7 counties. And some of the common themes that were heard were that people wanted to see and hear from local elected officials and candidates, not just before an election. They don't want to hear the infighting. They're not looking for pie in the sky plans. They just want to see people who are doing things and getting results. And they want to know when our leaders are able to make some changes and do some positive things, take the credit so that nobody's left guessing. So that's why we have invited our wonderful panel here. We have from Taylortown in Moore County, Councilwoman Bridget Cotton. We also have from the Richmond County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Tavaris Bostic, Town of Red Springs Board of Commissioner Caroline Sumpter, and from the Scotland County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Darrel BJ Gibson. And I am going to stop sharing my screen and give them a little bit of time to introduce themselves and stop hearing my voice. So if I can ask, let's see, Miss Bridget, Councilwoman Cotton, can I ask you to start us off?
Sure. First of all, I appreciate the invite, Miss Alexa, for having me on here. I feel honored to be considered as a millennial. Yeah, I'm still in that 40-ish range. But this is my second term on Taylortown's board. I was first elected in 2019. We just had election 2021 for the 2022 term, and it's a 2-year term. So this is actually my 3rd year. And I'm the youngest one on the Taylortown Town Council. So some more about me. I am a licensed massage therapist. So my career is a massage therapist. I've been doing that for 20 years. And I just felt the need to give back to my community and try to help my community grow. Is there anything else I'm missing?
No, I was going to ask you what your favorite thing about serving Taylortown is, but you said watching it grow.
Yeah, trying to help it grow. I ran on the purpose of providing transparency, unity, and revitalization of the town, because I feel those are three things that are desperately needed and that are missing.
Thank you very much.
You're
How
welcome.
about Commissioner Bostic? You want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. And thank you all so much for the New Rural Project. Thank you so much. Cynthia and Helen are two of my favorite people in politics and really outside of politics. Two people that I know I can always call and expect for them to give me honesty, no matter what I'm calling them about. And so I appreciate their friendship as well as appreciate them putting this together. I am the commissioner from Richmond County. I first ran for office 2016. We lost by a small margin. I went right back at it again in 2018, where we were able to pull it out. I guess the biggest reason for me to decide to run for county commissioner is really I had to look at the state of leadership in Richmond County and try to get a sense of whether or not leadership reflected everyone in the county. And at that time, I just didn't feel like it did. And so in my community efforts, where I was able to create so many relationships, it ended up being a situation where we started having more conversation about where people wanted to see Richmond County over the years, right? Were we moving in a direction that was conducive to for several things, economic development, a better relationship with and within government, with the county and the people that we're serving. What does fiscal responsibility look like over the next few years? What is our attitude towards the entities that don't always, I guess, bring in money? So homelessness, aging, those kinds of things. And those were conversations that I was having with everyday people. So no rhetoric, no craziness from, whatever news network you subscribe to, but just simply kitchen table issues that really pushed me towards running for office, because I believe that I had something that I could offer. And with regard to this conversation, I felt like the wisdom that was already on the board, plus the combination of youthfulness and forward thinking, I felt like those two things married together would be a winning combination for Richmond County. And so for me, this has been the best thing about running and serving, is always being able to make new connections. And now here I am running for re-election, and it gives me yet another opportunity to create even more relationships. So thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sumpter, are you there? No, you are currently muted. I'll come back to you, but for now, I'm going to ask Commissioner Gibson if you will take a few moments to introduce yourself, tell us why you ran.
Yes, thank you. Good evening to everyone. Cynthia and Helen, thank you all for, I was just sitting as to Commissioner Bostic was talking and thinking about just the impact that you all are already making with the New Rural Project. But more importantly, what I know is to come. And as a community leader, I just want you to know that we really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And thank you for including me in our conversation tonight. I am Commissioner Darrel B.J. Gibson from Scotland County. I first ran for office in 2010. I was 20 years old. I ran for the school board and was successful in being elected to the school board. I served on our local school board for 10 years. In 2020, I ran for county commissioner, and I am in my second year on the Board of Commissioners. What led me to run for office initially was the fact that there was a issue that was happening in our community. And there was a population that was not being heard by those who were on the board. Not even when they go to the meetings, it was as if their presence did not even matter. But that population of citizens were my people. They were my friends. They were my family. they were from the neighborhood that I was from, raised in. And I just felt like our voice should have been heard. And so I stepped out on faith, and trusting and believing that it was going to work out, and it did. I enjoy serving in our county. I will be honest, it is a challenge. It is not very easy. We have, as much as I love our community, and I want to be candid in this conversation, we have a lot of struggles that we are dealing with. And so sometimes it can be a bit stressful, but I enjoy serving because I know that there is a generation under me. You probably saw my profile pictures, my 4 babies, but there's a generation coming under me who we're paving the way for life to be made easier for them. And that's what gives me my greatest joy. So I'm glad to be here tonight and hope that I can glean from our conversation.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gibson. And I will ask our final panelist, Commissioner Sumpter, if you'll just take a few minutes to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
So much, Alexa, Commissioner, fellow service woman, as well as to the the Rural Project with Cynthia Wallace and Helen and the great team. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in rural North Carolina, because sometimes we feel left out. So thank you for highlighting that with the organization. To our fellow servants, thank you again for serving along this panel. So I started my journey in public service in 2015, ran successfully the first time for town commissioner for the town of Red Springs. I am completing my second term, which we serve 4-year terms, and I will be seeking re-election on next year for a 3rd term. Why do I do what I do, or why did I make that decision? Have always participated in the community, whether it was Girl Scouts, through church, community watch. I always felt my parents instilled in all of us, all 5 of their children, my siblings, that if you're a part of a community and you call it home and you love it, are you doing your part? And so your part may be to be a productive citizen, but to whom much is given, much is required. And we've often heard that. And my parents said, you may not always be the richest, but there's a part that you can play. You bring value. And so that is what sparked and just continues, that I continue to serve. And being on the board, I guess the entire time that I have served, I have been the youngest. Right now, I am the only female serving on our town council at the present. And I know that while I live here, I want to be a part, and not everyone can stand on the sidelines and coach from the sidelines. Sometimes you got to put some skin in the game. And so that is why I serve. Not to tell people that I do not perform magic, I do not perform miracles, but I can listen and be that voice. And whether it is a popular opinion or unpopular opinion, we are supposed to be the voice of all. And I believe that we serve by pulling and pushing those along with us. And so lots of times the motto that I use is real change. And that real change is, I'm a human. I pay light bill just like you pay light bill. I go to the Piggly Wiggly or the food line just like you go to the Piggly Wiggly and food line. I don't get a credit on my light bill or utilities. I have real struggles. I go to church just like you go to church. And then I'm raising 2 small little ones. And so we want to make this better, make some improvement. And so that's my purpose for serving. And it's not to get all the accolades or any praise, because most times, and I feel other panelists will agree, it is a thankless job. When you want to be enjoying family time, that text may go off and say, I don't have lights, or what about this? And you're thinking, I don't even know if that's something I can do, but okay, let me respond. A simple chore as going to get gas, you're serving all of the time. And so that's the part that I love. It's the part when someone looks at you and they say, thank you, then you know. And then when you can go to bed at night and say, you know what? We didn't do everything, but we did move the needle, and progress is progress. And so that is why I serve. That's why I continue to serve. And I love to see other people under 40 serving. Again, I'll reiterate, most of the folks on the board right now are old enough to be my parents or grandparents. And so that generational divide, it's learning to, you have the wisdom, right? And maybe we tried this in the past, but we're going to put a new spin on it. It's like it's not your grandma's banana pudding type deal. I like banana pudding, but we're going to put a new thing to it. I'm not a cook, right? So it's going to be something that we're not baking it. It's going to be something we're going to put in the fridge. But it's that learning piece to say, I have not done it all, but there's nothing new under the sun, but give me that wisdom. And then let me be the feet and the mouthpiece to do that. So our board could probably attest to that. I keep them busier more than they would like, especially with service and being out in the community and saying people want to see you. I know that we do a lot of things behind the scenes, but people want to see you. And so we try to be present in all aspects. And it's not all about money. It's that simple fix of, I see you, I hear you, and maybe I can't do anything about it now, but we're going to continue to work and be there. And so that's the part that I love about service. As you can tell, my voice is picked up, even if it's late in the evening, long day. But that's what we do. And that's what I'm hearing. I thank you so much for this space.
Thank you so much. So the purpose for us all being here tonight is we want to let our young folks hear from our young elected officials, and we want our young elected officials to hear from our young folks. So if I might start off with some of the questions that some of our participants have sent in. And I know right before we went live here, I did mention that I was just going to throw out a question and see who wants to jump on it. This is one that I'm hoping each of you will want to answer. So it's just, as a young elected official, what new ideas did you bring since to either your campaign or since you've been in office? And whoever wants to answer first, jump.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So when I was a candidate, the one thing that I thought about was Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, which is, to me, the greatest structured campaign I'd ever seen ever. Barack Obama did something that really, before him, only a handful of presidents was able to do, which was he could be in a room and not be in a room at the same time, right? He could be in Idaho and you would feel his presence in North Carolina. When I was at A&T, Barack Obama was in Greensboro and at A&T so much, I thought he was a student. And so for me, when I decided to run, it was look at what he was able to do in that moment, right? One, he was able to take advantage of social media. I like what Commissioner Sumpter was saying, is that there's nothing new under the sun, right? I wanted to look at how he utilized social media. I liked the way that he was able to be transparent in his ability to create relationships. And really, he stuck to kitchen table issues. I love the fact that he was willing to go into anyone's home, sit right at your table, have a piece of pie, and talk about the issues going on in your community. And so the one thing that I wanted to do as a candidate was basically do all of that, right? One, it was a winning ticket, but two, it was something that I didn't necessarily see from the leadership that we had in office. And so even after winning, I wanted to do that same thing. And so after winning, what I created was something that I called Commissioner's Corner. So basically, our meeting is the first Tuesday of every month at 5. That Wednesday, I would have what's called Commissioner's Corner, where basically what I would do is do a video. I would have the agenda from the last meeting, and I would basically go down and simplify everything, right? I ask people to come to the meetings all the time, but sometimes sitting in some of these meetings can feel like you're sitting in a quantum physics class. And so you just hear numbers, you just hear stuff coming at you. And so a part of my job and the way that I wanted to govern was really in the same way Ross Perot said, government should come from its people and not at them, right? And so for me, the only way that it can be like that is if they are equipped with information that's easy to digest and that they can talk to their friends about, right? So for me, I wanted to be able to create an environment that was inclusive to everyone, where everyone understood what was going on so that they could truly have a voice.
Wow. Okay. Anybody want to follow that?
Kind of hard, but I'm going to do my best because I'm going to answer this question just in case I don't get the answer anymore. One of the things that I tried to do is with my social media, just putting posts out. We real change. So it's like the official piece, but not the official piece. Before our town started with our Facebook and then our website being updated, it was if something was happening, I was being proactive and just getting the message out there. Oh, there's a water leak. So as soon as I knew, I was posting it, and it kind of diminished some of the phone calls because they're like, I don't have water, and you're like, oh, okay, don't know about that, but okay. So it was just being responsive, and then they felt that you were in tune to that. During Hurricane Matthew and Florence, I had my son in like July, and so I was right out after healing at least 5 weeks. Back in the field, and we did disaster relief giveaways, and I opened a shelter with the team, and it was letting people know that while you're hurting, we're hurting along with you, and we're going to help you along with you. Even Cynthia at that time came down and delivered clothes to our for our disaster giveaway, and so it was meeting people where they are. And we can scream about everything else, but if my basic needs are not being met by the people that I look to, right, to have the answers, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, or whether we can fix it or not, there was some type of response. So any and everyone that I could grab to volunteer, I did at that point. And it was like, oh gosh, we're going to be with the mayor. And it, because for some people it's a big thing. And I'm just like, we're regular people, just like you, a little more responsibility. So it was humanizing, like I'm a human, you're a human, and we're going to do this together. And I can lift the box and you can lift the box. And so at that time, I saw where our citizens were able to see our board, work alongside them. We were just pointing fingers. We were doing home checks. We were delivering meals, and we were cooking meals. We were helping to do certain things, and so we were able to be seen in a different light. And that is something that I pride myself on, is servant leadership. You don't have to give me a table or up front or a seat up front. Just let me be in the room, right? Don't throw rocks at me, but just let me be in the room. I don't need any accolades. I just want to be in the room. And what can I do to serve and make your life better? And that is a standpoint that I come from. And I guess it's a blessing and a cursing because your phone rings constantly. But I've learned to delegate and to share the load with that. But that's something that I do. If it's board meeting time, I'm checking in at town hall and I'm saying, hey, y'all, real change is board meeting time. Look at it. If there's certain things. And so it's just that connecting piece, being there. And any event that goes on in a small town, there's this expectation that you should be there. And I didn't realize that because you started and then you stop, and it's like, okay, I've got a sick little one. So I have to let people know, hey, I am supporting it. I just have a little one that I can't get out, or my schedule's conflicting, but they begin to look to you to be there. And if your stamp of approval isn't on it, not for everyone, but for most people, then it's not something that we want to be a part of. And so recognizing the power that we have to persuade, influence, I think that was a piece. And to say that I am approachable, I am here just like you. So it's humanizing that for me, and then seeing me as a person, and that we're in this together. No big I's, no little U's. A little bit more responsibility, but we're in this together. And that's something that I wanted. Like, I will answer your question, unless there's something that I cannot answer. It's not just, avoiding it. It's having some level of transparency about things that are going on. And so that's something that I've carried over. And I feel that most citizens like, because I'll say, well, have you called there? No, we felt like we should call you first. Okay, well, I'm just going to call the manager and he's going to call you back. So it's just that connecting piece, connecting the dots, that we're here, we're just not sitting tucked away in a cave and we pop out board meeting time. We're here and we live here. And I love my town. So.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I would be honored to answer the question. But I think Commissioner Sumpter and Bostic have really said everything that I think I would probably say. Only thing I add is I think one of the key points that they both made is I try to make sure that I'm present. The power of presence makes all the difference in the world. But I'm not gonna go on because I'll only repeat what they said. Guys, y'all did that.
Yes, they did. And I agree with you, Mr. Gibson. You summed it up perfectly. The same thing with myself. The first term, I was the only female on the board and the youngest. Now this term, there's another female, but I'm still the youngest. And just being the youngest, trying to bring the new ideas and bring them up to speed with the new generation. It's a little struggle, but we can get there if we work together, you know. They call the old because they know the way, and they call the young because we're strong. So social media and just being in the presence, being out there when COVID first hit, you know, people saw me out taking meals to people and getting people to help me, trying to get the community involved and have unity. You know, it's no just one person. We all need each other. So everything you all said, I agree.
Well, that's fantastic. And one thing that you all touched on was social media. And we had a question that was submitted that I think this leads directly, perfectly into. The question says, I attended a candidate forum last evening, and I heard from an 18-year-old that most teens today are inspired by social media, and they're more interested in becoming entrepreneurs than in anything political. But we need them to come to the voting process. From your perspective, how can we reach these young voters? So I'm gonna give you a second to think. Go ahead.
I think for what I'm experiencing, because I am trying to be more intentional about this than ever, and that is having these conversations. What I'm learning is that we have to, and especially those who are older than we are, listen to these young people rather than talking to them and telling them what we do and why we do it. I was raised in a whole different generation. My grandmother on election day kept me home from school because I was knocking on doors and working the polls. That was my grandmother. That's what we did. We're in a different generation. So much of my service is because that's just as Commissioner Sumpter did, that's what we were raised to do. That's what we know to do. There is a reason that young people are not engaged. There's a reason. And instead of us assuming that we know that reason, I'm learning that it's important for us to listen and let them share with us why they don't care, why they feel like their vote doesn't matter, why they don't want to be at the table, why they are not interested in running for public office. And then from that, we can glean how our conversation should go. But I think far too often we want to say your vote matters. You need to vote because we have people who died so you could vote. It doesn't really resonate with young people. We have to allow them to talk to us rather than us always talking to them.
Speaking of letting them talk to us, I just want to remind everyone here that we do have the chat box open. So if you've got a question for our panelists, I'm going to ask that you please drop that into the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get that question asked and answered for you, because we definitely want to hear from you. That's kind of what this whole thing is about. So thank you very much. Does anybody else want to answer that question? Commissioner Bostic, did I see your hand?
I was just going to say really quickly, and to piggyback off of Commissioner Gibson, I think for a long time, young people are looking at politics as a very one-sided relationship. And so it's kind of like for a lot of young people, they're not seeing the folks who are elected consistently enough to build relationships. And so during campaign time, now elected officials want to be in their communities saying all of the things that Commissioner Gibson is saying. What young people are saying now is, what do I get in exchange for my vote? I'll give you my vote, but what am I getting? And sometimes it's kind of like, if you have a platform that focuses on things that don't directly connect to that young person, and it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going to give you this vote for free and I get nothing. And so for so many young people, they want to be a part of a relationship where it is some give and take. right? Where they are talking to folks who are seeking office, and one, they understand what we're doing, and two, they can understand, okay, if you're doing this, in what way can I benefit from what you're doing? That's the only way that I want to be able to give you my vote, right? So for us, we have to figure out ways that we can better engage young people outside of the world of politics, right? Outside of that. And I realize that this conversation is about our ability to connect with voters and all that, but we have to have genuine relationships. Friends will do things for friends, right? But if I haven't tried to create a friendship with you, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, I come and knock on your door and I'm saying, hey, Bridget, give me your vote. And here's why, because I'm running on these things. You're going to be like, okay, and? So we have to do better with engaging them. And so, especially in conversations like this one and others that I've been a part of, where the room may be filled with people 40 and up, 50, our grandmas are there, but guess who's not there? Young people, right? So we have to figure out, if we're really going to engage these folks, they have to be able to show up where we are, and we have to be able to go to where they are.
Yeah, it seems like the young people have given up, at least what I'm seeing, they've given up on the community or local government. And I try to reach out to a lot of them. And in our community, we're small, and a lot of people think there's not a lot of youth here, but they are. We just need to get out there and seek them out. Go, like you said, go to where they are. You know, a lot of them are not going to come where we are. Every time we have a meeting, I'm constantly reaching out to people, you know, come to the meeting. This is for you guys. And they got to the point, what's the use of coming to the meeting? They don't see any changes. They don't see anybody addressing their issues and seem like people really care. So that's why I'm trying to bridge the gap and show them that I am here for you. I do care about what you care about and what you need. It's not just about me or, you know, the board or us. It's a whole community together. We got to work together. And we need the younger people to come in, because it seems like the older people are dying out. So if we don't get the youth involved, then what's going to happen?
I think pretty soon when we all hit 40, we're going to be those older people. And that's usually what I share with some of the young folks in being engaged. And you're right, Commissioner Cotton, asking them to come to the board meeting. It's, you know, it's like taboo. And I'm like, no, this is where the magic happens. I want to see your face, or I want to see you check in on Facebook. You know, make a comment, send me something. But it's also, like you say, meeting them where they are. And so it may be, I'm going to go to a basketball game. I'm going to squeeze something in. If there's some type of run or anything that's going on, that, because I'm not, you know, 18 anymore, even though sometimes I like to think so. It's finding what do they like. And so I keep play nephews and nieces around to kind of like feel my ear, give me the buzz on, you know, what's happening, because I'm out of touch with the lingo, right? I have a 13-year-old daughter that kind of tells me, Mom, please don't say that, you know, don't do that, right? That's not what you say, Mom. And I'm like, you know, so I goof around with that. But then just like getting some of her friends, whenever we have give backs or giveaways, I'm using a 13, 14, 15-year-olds. How much pizza can you digest, right? How many Takis or Takis, you know, can you possibly eat? So it's that give and take, and then saying, hey, yeah, I'm Alea's mom, but you know, I need you, and you know, we need you, and you're vital to this. Some things that we've done, you know, recognizing them for their volunteer service, putting them on the website, just certain things to meet them and say that you do play a part in this, and listening, ask a question, come in and talk to the mayor, come in and talk to the town manager. I mean, it's one household at a time, like there's no blanket response. But I like what Commissioner Gibson said, we must be intentional. Like you just can't show up, as Commissioner Bostic said, right before election. No, this work is ongoing. It's something all the time. You know, I'm asking, what do you guys like? What would you like to see happen? And we're working toward it. And I was like, okay, if you want it, then you got to show me that you want it. How do I plan it? What do I do? Kind of play on that naive part of I don't know what our youth means. So that the value of voting, targeting them, if at all possible, in classrooms or certain things. It's always some tidbit. They know they're going to get some type of lesson, right? You're going to burn up my Saturday, you're going to get some type of lesson, some type of give back. Who's not voted in your house, and how are you going to help me, help our town, because you said you wanted this, then I need some people to rally behind that. So it's using that and then explaining to them that it's not a quick fix. It's not a microwave fix that we can reheat this bad boy in 30 seconds and it comes about. There's a process, and being honest about that process to say, we tried it, it didn't work, but I'm open to trying it again. Like, if you're not giving up on it, I'm not giving up on it. And so, like I say, this arena is great. But then again, like, what else can we do, right, to tap into their world? And it's just intentional, and we keep going back, as my girl would say, warming over the biscuits, just throw some more water on them and heat them back up again, and let's try this again. But we don't give up.
These are great. These responses are really great. I think we are also getting tons of questions being dropped in the chat box. So I definitely want to make sure we have a chance to cover a lot of this stuff. But this might be a two-part thing, because young folks who are on this call and participating in this meeting, get into that chat box and let us know the answer to this question and see if we know it, as elected officials. What are those issues that are important to our young voters? What is going to get them motivated to come out to the polls and learn more about the process of their local governments? So, and I did see that we have an answer in the chat box from one of our young folks who says that, student loan debts, and I'm losing where that went, but student loan and healthcare costs, and so meeting people where they are is definitely one of those issues. Living wages, climate change. Are there any other issues that you feel like that you're reaching out to our younger generation and our younger people with?
In our community right now, and I was actually, forgive me, but I was texting one of the persons who is on this call. She's actually a candidate for city council here, and she's just turning 30. But our conversation, that's Barbara Rogers, so y'all say hey to her. But we have had literally for probably the last month killings, shootings every week. So I'm careful with how I respond to that, because I don't have the answer. But I do know that our young people are dealing with trauma. They're dealing with violence. They're dealing with gangs. They're dealing with mental health issues. On top of the things that Ms. Julia shared about. And I think as elected officials, if we don't respond to those issues, if we don't have conversations with young people about those issues, when it's time for you to talk about voting, they don't care. Because when they were hurting, when they were in their most vulnerable place, you weren't there. You didn't listen. You didn't have an ear. So I think that's important to, and I'm not just saying teenagers, I'm saying young adults who are living this every day. Ms. Julia talked about minimum and living wages. I think it's important for us in the areas that we can impact minimum and living wages. It's important for us to do that. And last night I attended a forum that you were at, Ms. Alexa, and one of the comments that were made talked about the fact that rather than us talking about living wages and minimum wages, we need to raise the standard so that kids are wanting to make the top dollar rather than the bottom. And I agree with that, but I also recognize that you're always going to have those who are on the bottom. You're just going to have them. And if we don't look out for the people on the ones on the top are going to be taken care of. And the kids that we push to be at the top are going to make those top dollars. But we always have to make sure that we're working to make sure that we leave the bottom, that foundation, on an even playing field. So I think some of those things are important. One of the things that I'm also facing here in our community is access, that young people have access to the jobs of the county. Because a lot of times what has happened with our employment base or employment opportunities in the county, there's a friend of a friend that slides in before anybody else even gets an opportunity. So trying to work, and of course, as a commissioner, we're, bird's eye, but just trying to make sure that we put policies in place and procedures in place that don't allow so many people to slide into positions, and young people who may graduate from college or who may never go off to college, but would qualify for those positions, are not given an opportunity. And so a kid will go off to North Carolina State or North Carolina Central or A&T, graduate and want to come back home, but they don't, there's not a job for them. And if we're not creating an even playing field so that they can come back home and get gainful employment, then of course we're going to lose them to Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, and other areas.
Commissioner Gibson, you actually just led me perfect lead into one of our next questions here. We are all from rural counties. Rural, I can't say the word very well, sorry. So we have some unique challenges because of access. We have broadband issues. A lot of us have water, sewer challenges. But what would you say as an elected official on your board has been one of the biggest challenges that you face in creating some change? And can you tell us about an initiative that you've been most proud of during your time in your seat?
I think I'll start off this time. One of the biggest challenges with our town was the water issue. We've had a water issue for years. Our pipe system that was under the ground was 50 years old. We recently received a USDA loan grant, which helped replace most of that piping. And plus we were able to get a new water tower. So we're just wrapping that project up. So hopefully we won't have to worry about, water breaks happening random times. And just like Commissioner Sumpter said, if we have a water break, I don't have water either. So people will call me and be like, we don't have any water. I don't either. So, but just relax, it's gonna be handled. One of the initiatives that I'm proud of in the town is we have 2 storefronts in our town that were only occupied with 2 businesses, and there were 7 or 8 spaces available. I like to say now that they are all filled with businesses, and most of them are young entrepreneurs. So that's one thing that I look to do with the youth, is to have them to come in and even with their storefront business, there are people in the community that have online businesses. So I like to tap into them and rally them around and have some kind of business initiative in town to bring awareness and create more jobs and such forth.
Commissioner Sumpter, did you have a hand up?
I was clapping about the economic development piece, because that's a real deal, and I would like to credit some of that to COVID. Here in our town, we were dealing with the same thing, and we have new businesses. And with being in rural America, rural North Carolina, I tell folks we are our own saviors as it relates to economic development. Yeah, we may have some big bucks to flirt us, but it's really going to be our homegrown leaders, entrepreneurs. If you want another taste of food, I said, you're going to be it. You're going to open that restaurant, to see what it is that you would like to have and bring to our city. So economic development is one of the things that I am proud of being on the board. And then also, if anyone's heard about Big Brother Keeper, the LGC, I came onto the board and we were not in a great place to be. And Hurricane Matthew just exasperated that with funding. And I think it strapped a lot of our small towns across North Carolina. So we're off that nasty list, I like to say, and having our reserves built back up. And then, as Commissioner Cotton stated, infrastructure has been real with water, sewer, our wastewater treatment plant, pipes that I didn't even think should have been in the ground, just how we've kind of like patched things to go over. So we're on the mend of that, replacing about 60% of our piping here in the town. We were an old mill town, so the mill did so much piping that is totally different from what the town had, and so we're merging all that together. And we have a new wastewater treatment plant. So clean water, right, is something that all of us want. Access to water. When you turn on the spigot, as my grandpa would say, I want the water to run and I want it to be clean. So that's something that we pride ourselves on. And then we had the hospital that had a doctor's office here that kind of closed at the brink of COVID. And now we have a new facility here, having access to healthcare. That's affordable right here in town. And people say, oh, you can drive to Lumberton, but not everyone has adequate transportation. And then there's not adequate transportation throughout the county. There's, seats, but that's not always adequate to get to and from the doctor. So just having that piece to bring back another provider into our town is something that public-private relationships and working to meet that need and demand for our citizens are something that I am very, very, very proud of.
Thank you.
I'm just going to
Commissioner
add,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll add it quickly. Since many of us are in rural North Carolina, all of our issues are going to be practically the same. The one issue that I think probably plagues all rural counties is the relationships that the county has within each other, right? The municipal relationship with the county and our ability to get things done, right? So I won't speak for every county. I know for Richmond County, historically, that has not been the best relationship. And I have said before becoming a commissioner, and even after becoming a commissioner, that our ability to have better, stronger relationships would allow for us to put Richmond County 10 years ahead, probably even more, right? But so for me, I am a mental health therapist by trade, so obviously relationships are going to be a bit more important in our ability to strengthen those. But I can sit here and talk to you guys about our shell building program. I can tell you about how we've brought 400 plus jobs. I can talk about how we've dumped money into safety and policing. I can tell you about all of those things. It won't matter as much unless I can come on a call like this and tell you that the relationship that the county has with municipalities is strong. Only then will the other things matter enough for me to really talk about it.
I think that's a great point. And that's one thing I like about our panel here. I think, two of our panelists are county level commissioners, and then we've also got some municipal level council and commissioners here. So that's an important point, because a lot of times at the municipal level, we rely on the county level, and the county level relies on the municipal folks. So one thing that I think we all have to deal with and is our healthcare and access to healthcare. Rural communities do have a lot of issues with that access, and that's something that New Rural Project has focused on doing COVID vaccination events. So how would you, and I'm just going to pick one of you to answer this at this point, just for time's sake. So I'm going to go with Commissioner Gibson here. What would you envision the perfect healthcare system for your community and your constituents? And then if anybody has something to add to that, we'll allow for that.
Commissioner Sumpter made a great point about the fact of in our local communities, when we have, and we're blessed to have Scotland healthcare system here and the many facets of our healthcare system that are made available, even in small towns like Wagram and Laurel Hill, they have small offices. I think, that's perfect. But I think there is a major need, which I am running for North Carolina Senate, and that's a major concern of mine and is for most of us, and that is the expansion of Medicaid. There are so many people who just cannot afford health insurance. I mean, working people can't even afford health insurance because it is so expensive. And I think that we've got to do a better job across the state to ensure that we're providing people with, is that me getting feedback? Okay, I think we're good now. But that people have access to Medicaid. But then after access to Medicaid, I think back to what Commissioner Sumpter said, having access to adequate health care in our communities is vital, extremely important. So that people, because they may not have, you know, the ability to get to Moore County or to get to Lumberton. So having that in our local communities, I think is important.
Anyone want to add to that right quick? Okay, I'm gonna move us along. So, you know, we are focusing on our younger folks here. And we're talking, so we've got some questions in the chat box about teaching 18 to 22-year-olds and the lack of knowledge about civic education. There's not a whole lot of it going on. But what if we try to focus on kind of reaching the youth and at the same time reaching the young adults and guardians that are raising that next generation, so we can break the cycle that is developing. I know we've all kind of just talked about, like, it's a different generation. You know, I went to the polls with my grandmother. She worked every single one. And as our lives as we're getting older and things are changing even more so. I'm going to ask Commissioner Sumpter, do you want to speak a little bit on that?
So the question is, how do we
reach the youth and at the same time reach those adults and guardians who are raising that next generation?
I think it's I think maybe we've answered it a little bit, but we can dive a little deeper. Just saying, being intentional in doing so, not just when it's convenient, when it's campaign time, but all the time. And I think it's something that I did on the campaign trail, and until, you know, work-life balance kind of got out of whack. And that was every so often having some type of event. And it's where it was geared toward the children at a certain age, because I was like, I've got to have my daughter, right? So what does she like? What do the little nieces and nephews like? And then how can we bring that piece in and do a part of education? And food is always a winner, right? Some type of event, you know, that's family friendly, to say, hey, yes, we're going to talk about issues, but I have kids just like you have kids. Come, bring them in. This is a safe space. And just a round robin. You know, it's not like, hey, don't bash the boss kind of session, but you can lay it on me, and then we can talk about these things, and we can talk about why this race matters, and we can talk about a voting record and why maybe this side of town doesn't have a basketball goal, whereas the other side of town does. It's, you know, I want to be able to take my child to a park is something that myself and our former town manager, we kind of disagreed on. And I said, hey, you have grandkids, right? And I said, so when you go visit your grandkids, do you take them to a park? Do they? And I said, so your grandkids are no better than the kids that are here. So look at it from that lens of, yeah, you may have one or two little rugrats, our little darlings, that may not do everything that we want them to do at the parks, right? But what about the other 50 kids that would utilize the park in that way? And I think sometimes we punish all because of actions or few. And I'm not saying that I'm, you know, in denial of the violence and things that take place, but what does that do to those that are doing the right things? And, you know, let's empower them to say, hey, this is what you want. This is what we're going to go for. And so it's engaging them in that piece, that there is power in their voice, their power in numbers. And so then you say, the same way that you call me, right? Because we want something fixed or changed, I need you to direct that same energy to go to the polls every single time and hold them accountable. And one vote does matter, right? And that's, oh, it matters, right? You made one phone call and it was a ripple effect, and it changes. And so it's just breaking it down. I think Commissioner Bostic said it in simplistic terms to something that's, you know, they're very passionate about, and saying, okay, if you're passionate about this, then we need to take it to this, and let's do this part. And then, you know what, there's a commission and we need some folks on the Recreation Commission. And you said you like to coach. Oh yeah, you need to be on that Recreation Commission. Oh, no. Oh yeah. Come on, help. And it's engaging that part to say, then you can see where the true magic happens. And it's just doing it one step at a time, and then partnering. There will be people that I will reach, right? that Commissioner Bostic will never reach. There will be people that Commissioner Bostic will reach that I will never reach because we're not the same, right? But we have the same mission, and it's okay who gets the win, right? Doesn't matter who gets the credit. It's doing that part. I know he does a lot of great things in Richmond County with the youth and give back and backpack things. So they're going to be people that remember him and say, you know what? He's just another brother, like, oh, what's some letters? What's that Greek thing he's got going on? Reaching people, you know, where they are and realizing that we see you, right? And it's one communication, one conversation at a time. And that's to me, that's the engagement piece. Here, I would like to say, and maybe I'm wrong, and the panelists can correct or add, in rural North Carolina, we like that knock on the door. We know that telephone call, like the robocalls are great, the commercials are great, but we want to see you, right? We want you to do church runs, if at all possible, right? We want you to come to the cookouts. We want you to see those things. And so it's being present. And I tell people, even if you can't be, have a surrogate, right? Have a group of people that will be present to say, you know what? When you see them, you see me, right? And they're going to get the message back to me. And so it's being intentional, right? We just can't pop up and say we're going to do this tomorrow. It's being intentional and having that strategy. A lot of people may not look at it that way, but that's what it is. It's intentional. You know, are you involved at the PTA at school, right? The kids see me coming and they think, oh gosh, they texted my daughter, right? Or say, oh, I saw your mama. I saw your mama. You know, it's not anything bad. I was coming to, you know, drop off some treats, right? I wasn't ready to raise the phone at that moment, but it's knowing what are you known for? And there's no person that I would say is not worth saving. We all have some good in us. And so now I'll just say now, when I go on the sides that I'm not really comfortable with, I tell them I don't have no street credit. I got some people behind me now, so don't mess with me. You may see me alone, but I'm not alone. And the guys are like, Miss Sumpter, we got you. You know what I'm saying? And they'll come to the polls. They'll get in the car with me. And so it's just knowing if they know that you're genuine. And I think we've said that before. We know that you're genuine, and we take that and just take the titles off, you know, take the accolades away and say, see me, I believe red. And your problems are my problems, and we sink or swim together. And that's usually, you know, why I don't go to the grocery store during the day. I try to go at night because my daughter says I won't get out in time. Because we stop people and I say, oh, you're having an issue? Oh, okay. You know, what can we do? Call this number. And so it's just being intentional, right? You have to have a heart of service. And I'm not saying that all people don't have a heart of service, because some people just do it because it's just something to do. And then there are those of us that truly care and we want to impact change, and we really want to make a difference. And so I tell people, if you want to see me longer, and if you want my impact to grow, then I need you to follow me. I don't need you, you know, to say, oh, I need you to follow me. I need you walking right beside me in this fight. And I can't do it without you. And that's usually, you know, how I look at it that way, and grabbing our youngsters and those in the midst. It's not saying, I say, well, why aren't you voting? Tell me why you wouldn't. You know, what issue do you have that's not being resolved? You know, and so it's like, oh, okay. And like Commissioner Gibson said, asking the question, not just telling them why we want them to vote, but why are you not voting? What can I do to change your mindset, right? And maybe if I don't get you today, but you know, I'm coming back tomorrow, right? Or I'm coming back next week. And then I'm going to bring somebody else with me. You're saying that people are flying up and down your road here and you don't see a police officer? Oh, no problem. I'm going to call the chief right now. Oh, I don't want to get nobody in trouble. Well, it's not trouble, but we want to fix the issue. And so it's that piece, using our level of influence in whatever capacity it is to help our fellow man. And I think when we reach people where they are and we're truly genuine and we care, and then we follow through, right? Then that makes a difference. That really makes a difference.
Did
I answer the question? Because sometimes I don't know if I do or not.
You did. You definitely did. And you know, you brought up coaches, like you mentioned, you know, hey, you like to coach, be on our recreation thing. That's something that I know that I have worked with on my council. We have advisory boards. We do have a system inside of our governments that encourage and allow for more people to participate rather than being elected. You apply and you get appointed to some sort of an advisory board to the commission or to the council. And so how do you, in your current seated office, how do you use advisory boards? And are there any things that you have done that have encouraged more young people to apply for those advisory board positions? And Councilwoman Cotton. you've been quiet for a bit.
Yeah, well, we really don't have any advisory boards right now. We're gathering committees. I guess that would be the same as advisory board.
Mhm.
But that's one thing we're in the process of doing, especially as far as our park and recreation and senior citizens, trying to get people involved on those boards. But that's something that we'll be looking into, maybe trying to get the youth involved, and if we can get them together, some more of their friends together and come up with a committee to serve the youth, that would be very helpful.
May I
Commissioner
add?
Gibson? Yeah.
Yeah. So since I've been on our board of commissioners, one of the things that has not been popular, but I've really pressed is that if you are on a board and your term comes to an end, then that particular appointment is now vacant. And that should be advertised so that other people will get an opportunity to be a part. What had happened prior to my coming on the board was, for an example, if you had served on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, when your term was up, they simply renewed it for another term. And so it was never, announced to the public that there is a vacancy. So even now we're still fighting, on our planning and zoning board. We have a man who's been on that board for 22 years. So there's not an opportunity for anyone else to come on. And so even those small things, I think we're able to do as change agents. And so from that, I have a young lady who's under 40 that we just put on our JCPC board, which of course deals with juvenile crime prevention. Would have never gotten that opportunity if we had not been intentional about, and I tell our board, those on our board of commissioners are all older than I am. The youngest is 55, and I always laugh with him that my dad is only 52. So everybody is, 70 and older. But they've always complained, well, we don't have anybody to fill the boards, but you've got to be intentional, and sometimes pick up the phone and call people and say, listen, there's a vacancy on this board. You've shared this complaint, you share this idea, this might be a good place for you to come in and offer your assistance.
And just real quick on Commissioner Gibson, that was one thing coming on to the Board of Commissioners and trying to decide who is going to be on what board. Really, it would just come to, it would be on the agenda. The county manager would say, this advisory board needs XX person. These people are going to be in there, yay or nay. And then we're all like, yay. And then I end up saying, who is that? What she do? And so for me, the big thing was, no, let me know in advance. Just don't like push people on me and say yay or nay, because up until, and it only took maybe like 1 or 2 times of them doing that and me having to consistently ask, who are these people? Once I figured out who these people are, I'm like, why this particular board for them? When, to Brother Gibson's point, there are people over here who either work in the field, have experience here, who might be better suited. So I guess basically what we're talking about is a better vetting process for these advisory boards. And if young people are available to fill those positions, great. I just want to make sure that the best people are getting into these particular positions or on these advisory boards.
Okay. Miss Cynthia, did you say you maybe had a question you wanted to put up to?
Yes, I did. So one thing I'll say just briefly is I was on a panel yesterday with Chris Suggs from Kinston, and he did something very interesting in his in the town of Kinston. He actually advocated to his board that they were to, I don't know if it was the city or the county, that they lower the age of admission to a board from 21 to 16. And they now have younger people on their boards. So on those committees and those advisory boards. So I thought that was quite fascinating. I was on a panel with him on yesterday, and he's the youngest elected official in the state of North Carolina, an amazing young man. But one of the questions I believe Mary Clance asked in the chat a little bit earlier was around, broadband. And it was that, for as an example, do you think young people realize the power that government has, like broadband? And if not, are there some ways that we can, help educate folks so that they understand? So kind of like what New Rural Projects, our focus is connecting the dots. And so what are your thoughts as it relates to, how do we educate folks to make sure that they do understand the power of government, in particular their local government? Tavaris, I see you came off mute.
Okay, I'm jumping in then.
Jump in.
I think one thing that we have to be able to do is acknowledge that young people know more about government than I think we give them credit for. I don't know how many of you are on like TikTok or Instagram. Go on there and type in politics and look at how many young people can break down bills and policies and what's happening here and there more than the people who are elected. Broadband is one of those things that they can tell you about. Per capita, ad valorem. I can go down the line and ask each of you, what is per capita and ad valorem? Probably half of the group even knows what this is, right? You can go on TikTok and find a young person who is able to say, this means this means that, this means that. So I think that we have to go in giving these folks credit for what they do know. Sometimes I think we get it confused in what they know versus their want or need to have conversations with us, right? Those are two different things. Young people know a whole lot, more than we give them credit for, about politics, policies, and all of that stuff. The other part is, do they want to have a conversation about those things with Caroline, with Tavaris, with Gibson, with Cotton, with any of you, right? That's the real question. So if the New Rural Project, and for many of us who are trying to do the good work, one, I think it's important to just figure out what is it that you know, what's important, to you, like a broadband, right? Some people know what broadband is, some people may not. Young people know what it is because they're using it every day, and they know what it is to go 10 minutes without it, right? Take your kid's phone, right? Turn the Wi-Fi off. They know what broadband is, right? Our, I think, responsibility is being able to say, so for Richmond County, the whole northern end of our county does not have broadband, right? The kids up there understand what that is. And I know because I've talked to them. And their conversation with me is, I thought you was working on a study that was going to get us some internet up here. And I'm like, yeah, I am. What do you think I should do? I won't say some of the suggestions that they tell me to do, or how they should tell me to talk to my peers, but they know what's happening. So one, I think we have to give them credit. And two, for the holes that we can fill in, I think that's an easier job. But the big thing is, do they want to have that conversation with us? Or how do we make ourselves more, I'll say it like this. I can talk to you about Young Dirt, Moneybag Yo, and Gucci Mane. I can also talk to you about policies, procedures, Build Back Better, why the gas prices are this thing, why taxes are this. We have to have a balance of both. So I can go down the line and say, who knows who Moneybag Yo is? Who knows who Gucci Mane is, right? You have to be able to be balanced. I think that's the way that we're going to be able to reach it.
Absolutely. That was really good. I don't even know how to follow that answer up with another question. But I do want to ask one other thing. I know when I first started running for my office, Facebook was the main social media. And now Facebook is kind of, the old people hang out there like me, and the young people are not on Facebook. So you mentioned TikTok, Commissioner Bostic. where else are we going to find our young folks?
Snapchat.
Snapchat. Oh, you're muted, Commissioner Sumpter. Sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say Instagram, making YouTube videos.
YouTube, Instagram, Commissioner Gibson.
No, I wanted to chime in, not really to answer, but to ask if any of those who are part of this panel, are you all using Snapchat, Instagram for your political purposes to reach the audience at all? I'm not. I'm Facebook. I've been considering doing the others, but it can become so time consuming. Are any of you all using Instagram or TikTok or any of that?
I use Instagram for my personal business, but not for politics. I'm like you, Facebook. And before I got on this board, there was no social media. So I started that initiative trying to put information out there on social media, and spreading the word about different things like water breaks or meetings or different things. But yeah, I'm strictly Facebook. If there's some other ways to reach the youth, I'm game.
And I asked that question because my council just recently passed a new social media policy for council members as part of our rules of procedure. I am the only council member who uses social media. Therefore, it's very clear it was specifically for me. But that's something that, you know, a lot of the folks that I'm trying to meet people where they are. And that's really what this is trying to do here. And so I am going to just go back and share my screen again, if that's okay with y'all. So meeting people where they are, if we start looking at how do we get people to the polls, if this is a little graph here, and hopefully you can all see that, where it's showing ages 18 to 40 over the years and where people have been voting and how many people have been voting. And you can see that our Native American population is the only one who has had a significant rise here. Well, most people had some drops. So we really want to get folks engaged and get them to. So I just want us all to start thinking, like, how do we engage more young people civically? What are the local issues of concern specific to young people? And what can elected officials do to show that they are listening? And, you know, like I said, this is a launching of a quarterly thing. So let's try to take a second to talk about what kind of quarterly next steps, like what are we going to do for our next presentations, our next forums like this.
Alexa, if I can make a suggestion, not to monopolize my presence, but I would love to return to this same conversation with the same panelists, but I would love for us to bring on a younger person who may be 18, 21 to join in this conversation and we are able to have dialogue with them, and not necessarily one that we've coached, if that makes sense, but just to hear both the perspective of maybe a 21-year-old who's not in the political arena at all, in retrospect of what we're talking about. That would be one of the suggestions I'd like to share.
Great.
I like that. And could we bring one from each of the counties that maybe we reside in? Tavaris knows all the kids in Richmond, so you can't. We have to find someone who's on it. I'm just joking. He's really involved with his youth. I like that.
And in the chat box, I see we have somebody who's helping prep some young women for college. That Ms. Sherella Horton. Thank you. Tavaris. Commissioner Bostic, did you have something? You leaned forward.
Yeah, I agree. My hope is that for much of what we've been talking about, and I was trying to kind of look in the chat and see what was going on. The biggest thing with conversations like the one we're having, is our ability to do follow-up, right? So my hope for everyone is that you take some of the prescriptions that we've put in here or that you've heard from us, and be able to apply them to your communities and see kind of what sort of movement you can get. A lot of these conversations, I really personally like having them outside of election years, right? Because honestly, how often are conversations like this happening in off years, right? Now, here we are, because some of us are running for reelection. Some of us have a candidate that we really want to support. And so we have to be able to, sorry guys, have to be able to be better at doing some of the follow-up. So if this conversation is going to lead to another, my hope is that people can come back to this conversation and say, hey, based on what you guys were talking about, here's what we were able to do or suggest in our community. And here's some of the movement that we've seen so far. So my suggestion is use some of the things that you've heard tonight, hopefully bring some ideas on the next one for how we can be better. This was only 4 of us, guys. So I'm not claiming that we know it all or anything. We're elected. These seats are available to really anyone. And so come back, bring suggestions. Let's all make each other better.
This has been great. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know it's late, and Commissioner Sumpter, you mentioned food enough times that my stomach is rumbling. I can't be the only one. I mean, you brought a banana pudding, that was the end of it for me. So we've got about 10 more minutes to our scheduled time. And I do want us to be able to take a few moments just to share with you as elected officials, as well as all of the participants on this call, some of the things that New Rural Project is trying to do to help engage some voters and our young people. So I am going to pull my screen up one more time, and I'm going to ask Miss Cynthia Wallace, would you like to tell us a little bit about the strategy that New Rural Project uses? You tell me, and I'll work that machine for you.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I want everyone here to join me in thanking our amazing panel for all that they've shared with us, and their insights and, their care. I know almost every one of the panelists. This is my first time meeting Ms. Cotton officially, but I know what you guys are doing in your community. And not just when the cameras are on, not just when it's an election year. And so we really do appreciate what you're doing in your community. And we actually, I know you said you're not the only ones, but there are not a lot of under 40 people in these positions in these counties. And we looked, so we are appreciative of you, and we want more of you. So that's one of the things that New Rural Project hopes that with your work and our efforts we'll be able to do. So as you see on the screen, also thank you, Alexa. Alexa did a fabulous job of moderating. So we thank you as well. And then just to talk a little bit about the New Rural Project's strategy, as we've talked about to several folks, it's a 3-pronged strategy, which we say begins and ends with listening. I think I heard that also from several of the folks, which is, not doing all the talking. And we've heard from young people that they, feel like they're being talked at and not talked with or listened to. And that's what we're trying to do with our organization, and increasing then hopefully civic and electoral engagement by connecting the dots between why you vote, why you should be on these boards and committees, and how that impacts your day-to-day life. And so those are some of the things that we hope to do, and we hope we've been able to do a bit. So as we jump to the last couple of slides here, Alexa, we will, just telling you a little bit about some of the things that we have been doing. So many of you participated last year in our county conversations, where we broke down the numbers. We broke down what the voter turnout looked like. We broke down the fact that all of our rural counties that we support, from Union to Anson to Richmond to Scotland to Robinson, Hope, and more counties, that every single one of those counties, when you look at the voters of color, when you look at the registered voters under 40 who did not turn out in 2020 in the general election, how any of those counties could have changed the outcome in the the Chief Justice race that was actually decided by 401 votes out of 5 million cast. And so that's why we're in this work. And that's why we're on those front porches, starting in Anson County, talking to those folks that didn't get out to vote in 2020. And we want to understand those barriers. We don't want to assume we know why they didn't vote. Just like I think Pastor Gibson said, we're not assuming, we're asking, and we're trying to learn. And then just last Saturday, we launched our barbershop conversation in Anson County, where we have convened 10 to 12 or somewhere 10 to 15, hopefully, if we at a max, African-American men under 40 in Triad Barber School in our FADE program. Fruitful African-American discussions on empowerment. And we had a fascinating conversation just last week with Sam Cole. I think he dropped a little bit earlier, and Garrett Snuggs, who is the owner of the Triad Barber School, talking about entrepreneurship and jobs. And so we're going to be back in the barbershop for the next 3 weeks, talking about other topics that these men are interested in, and hoping that we will create new civic advocates and maybe some elected officials or future candidates along the way. And we'll be doing that across the other counties as well. Anson's our pilot, but if you're interested in us being in your town, just let us know. And then our young people's conversation. And then lastly, what are some action events that we're doing? As was mentioned, we've been out in the community over the last year working on COVID vaccinations and testing events. And in that effort, it was really not just about the COVID testing and the vaccine, it was about creating community events. So these events weren't just vaccines, they were bringing the community together and hopefully breaking down some of the inequities in healthcare. And just last night, we launched our weekly phone bank. So we've had a busy March and April is looking to be just as busy. So just last night, Nisi launched our every Tuesday phone bank. And so she just dropped some links in the chat. This is how you can join that effort. So we will be back next Tuesday talking to voters. And then finally, on next Wednesday is our first anniversary. New Rural Project will turn 1 on April 6th. And so I just dropped a link in the chat. We really hope you will join us. We will be, we're honored to have Patricia Timmons Goodson. She is our special guest, is one of our special guests. She was the first African-American woman on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And as we all know what's happening, I'm sure that we're on the precipice of having the first Black woman ever on the U.S. Supreme Court. So Patricia Timmons Goodson, we couldn't think of a better guest to have with us to talk about the importance of what it means to serve and what it means to serve in our judicial system. And we're also going to have a special note, hopefully from our governor, as well as Natalie Murdoch, Senator Natalie Murdoch, who is also one of our younger elected officials in the state. And so we are really excited about that. Please join us. Don't hesitate. Alexa, I know this is how you can reach all of us. This is our small but mighty team. Helen, Alexa, Nisi, all of us, those are our emails. It's our first name @New Rural Project. Please reach out to us. We want to help. We want to be engaged. We want to work with you to figure out how we uplift the voices of our rural young people, our rural folks of color who have felt marginalized, who have felt not heard. And we want you to continue on this journey with us. So Alexa, anything else? Anything I'm missing? You got to follow us on those social media channels. If you haven't done it, go ahead.
So we were just talking about the importance of social media and reaching our younger population. So don't forget, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can share our posts, tag us, do all of those things. I definitely want to thank our panelists, but I really want to thank everybody who has joined us tonight. We are fortunate to have so many people who jumped onto this call, and I look forward to some future events like this. And you know, if you are here with us, if you will please tell your friends and help us get the word out about all the good things that we're trying to do and why it's so important to keep to stay engaged. So I am going to stop. I'm going to just leave it here. And I know we have lots of stuff going on in the chat box. We can send out this presentation to anybody who would like it. I can just send it to everybody who's been registered. I think we're saving the chat box as well. So we will keep that going. Like I said, we did record this meeting and it is being streamed live on our New World Project Facebook page. And so we'll say goodbye to all our Facebook followers and we can stop that live stream. If there's anybody who wants to stick around and ask some questions, we can stick around for a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. This was incredible.
Thank you for having me.
You all. And I know we had a couple of elected officials or candidates on. So if we want to hang out for a couple minutes, if anybody wants to introduce themselves.
I think Mr. Simon has a question.
I think he was clapping.
Yeah, I was just applauding. Great job, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Rogers, did we hear you were running for something? You want to say some words?
I am. I thoroughly enjoyed the panel and learning what you all do at New Rural Project. I was invited by our future Senate, Mr. Darrel Gibson, but I thoroughly enjoyed the questions and the conversations because it is true that across the board that rural areas are dealing with some of the same things. But I am running for city council at large. I'm 30 years